Hello and welcome to Northside NOW. This is the podcast where your lovable hosts take you on a tour through all of the ministries and the latest happenings around Northside Church to keep you better connected with your church family. I'm one of your hosts, Patrick, and with me as always is the illustrious Glenn Miller.
Good day. How are we?
I'm all right. How are you?
I'm good. I'm good.
We're also still missing our enigmatic man of mystery, Kevin Bryant.
We're still down a musketeer.
We're down a musketeer, but we've brought in a special guest host.
A Padawan.
A crossover from the Donkey Talk podcast.
Donk.
We're going to welcome someone I've never met before, Cameron Mathenia.
Thanks for having me, guys. Glad to be the Great Value brand, Kevin Bryant, the knockoff musketeer.
Yeah, I need you to talk in a lower voice.
Okay, I'll work on that. I've been needing that my whole adult life. We get working on it.
Yeah, Kevin, thanks, Dad.
And Kevin's doing good. Out to everyone out there, he's doing good and recuperating, and we'll be back with us soon. So
yeah, just don't ask him to do too much physical labor at the moment.
Yeah, he's laying around, but he's gonna be all right. It's amazing. Today, I know someone today that had hip surgery, hip replacement today. Mm-hmm. She's going home this afternoon.
Wow.
That's impressive.
It's amazing what we can do medically now. It just really is unbelievable. That used to be like a 3-4 week stay in the hospital.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
So.
I mean, even when like our granddad had it not but a few years ago, I mean, I think he stayed at least a little while.
Yeah, he stayed down for a good while.
It's crazy, but
we're getting closer and closer to that threshold where eventually it'll be like people will be electing to get prosthetic parts because they're better than real. It's
give
like
me my robot legs.
Exactly.
Please.
So I can run faster and jump higher. And
hey,
eventually we're just going to do like brain transplants into robots.
We've watched too many movies about AI. I'm never going to do that. Well, I don't want any robot to take over my brain.
Welcome to Skynet.
Or to be like in my house living with me.
Alexa, can you hear me?
Yes. Hey, government wiretap. What's a recipe for soup?
I mean, that's basically what we're living in now is we're slowly introducing that artificial intelligence.
Well, they say, people, if be careful, like if your Wi-Fi networks are really not very secure, someone could pull up to your house, get on your Wi-Fi network, and begin turning off your air, your refrigerator, your freezer, because all these things have smart chips on them. They're all smart done.
Oh, yeah.
You can really mess yourself up if you don't.
Especially if you start getting into like those like home systems where like you can lock your doors and you can like all that kind of stuff just from the app. It's like if somebody hacks into that.
Yeah. Yeah. And the real problem is the further you go down that rabbit hole, the more you realize that like just about nobody's like home Wi-Fi network is safe. Like just because they put like the password that came with the router or something on it, it's not really that safe. And it's just like, oh man, I'm just like getting really paranoid and stuff. I'm totally in the camp of like, I don't need a smart toaster that can like tell me the weather while it toasts my bread. Like just toast the bread.
I need to play Angry Birds on my refrigerator.
Exactly. I don't need that.
While I hold the door open, drinking milk out of the jug.
Straight out of the jug.
The scariest one is a lot of the smart TVs that are out now. And it's crazy the level of just intrusiveness. And like they call it like the personalized ads, but it's like predatory ads at this point.
Yeah.
And like you buy the TV and then they start showing you ads on the TV that you can't turn off, and you cannot like, there are some TVs that won't let you not use the smart features.
Yeah.
Because they just force it, and they're constantly just sending back to the TV manufacturer everything you watch, everything you do. And some of them, especially there's some that are come equipped with like a camera, and they legit take a picture every few seconds of who's watching, and they send it without your knowledge to the TV manufacturers, and it's spooky. And
I don't know if my TV has a camera on it or not. It doesn't.
It's a hidden camera.
It doesn't say it has a camera.
They don't say. A lot of them don't like announce a lot of the stuff, the features that they have on them. But there's a thing in the settings. I don't remember what it's called. It's some acronym. Starts with an A. That a lot of TVs will have in there, and that's basically it's like an automated. Every few seconds, takes a picture, a snapshot of what's on the screen, who's watching, everything that's going on, like a sound bite from the room, and sends it to the TV manufacturer.
Well, it's just, I mean, it's what everybody, Facebook, Google, I mean, it's what they're all doing to kind of build out that 3D model of you, that algorithm to better sell you products. Amazon does it.
We've received in the mail here scanners that you can put at the doors and are just inside the doors from, for churches, for nonprofits, for churches that scans everybody's phone that walks down that hallway through that portal. And it will then, create all these lists and everything and tell you where your people are going, what they're doing, what places they're shopping at, so that you can direct your church marketing to the right things. Yeah, Randy actually, it was before COVID that he said, we'll never do this. This is crazy. But think about that. For a church. Now, come on.
That's what everybody's doing.
That is wild.
There's a great Netflix documentary that everybody needs to watch called The Social Dilemma. I recommend it for everybody. It kind of talks a lot about how, it's more about social media, but they talk a lot about how everything is targeted to sell you ads. Well, really, you're being sold to the ad.
There you go. Yeah. You're not being sold to. You are the product.
You are the product. Your attention is the product for the advertising companies. So, yeah.
It's really interesting when you really dive into all that stuff and you're like, man, I am even less like on the ball of these things than I thought I was,
Yeah. Oh, hey, technology passes you pretty fast. It's amazing how quickly it's just so quick. Everything's so fast with it as it evolves down the road. So it will be interesting to see. How close to the Jetsons we get before I die. That's what everybody worries about. I don't be like the Jetsons. And then Barbie ups and names our iRobot vacuum cleaner thing Rosie. So there we go. Well, we're here today in the podcast room with Miss Ann Sage. Welcome, Ann.
Hello.
We're glad you're here. Now, Ann is the director of our nursery here at the church. So you have all the little babies.
Yes. So, infant to 4 years old.
Oh, cool. So how many little ones are in there? I know COVID messed everything up, but what would be like a typical day in the nursery?
A typical pre-COVID day would be anywhere from, different services, but altogether total probably 25, 30 kids.
Wow. That's pretty cool. Now, since we have kids started coming back and families starting to come back, what's it been like now that we're getting people back in the building? Is it rising or?
It's a very slow process, but steadily getting a little bit more and a little bit more as parents are getting comfortable with bringing their children back into the nursery.
Well, cool. Well, tell us.
I noticed almost like an immediate jump once we said, hey, the nursery's back open. Like the next week, there was like 10 times more people than had been showing up.
A lot of families came back.
Yeah, and we've had a lot of families come stick their head in and say hi and say, we'll be bringing the kids back soon.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
It's a little bit different. Kids are notorious for, like licking things and touching their hands to things and picking noses.
Just gross.
Not just kids.
They are.
Sometimes the adults do it too.
Yeah. That's
just blame it on the kids.
Let's not leave it all on the kids.
The joy group,
All the plastic food is the worst there in the nursery because we can pretend to eat it when they cook for us, but when they cook for each other, it's in the mouth.
That's how they build up an immune system, right?
It really is, actually.
It's good for them.
But pre-COVID, if they licked the floor, it was like, okay, guys, really don't lick the floor. But hey, you know.
Is the castle still in there?
It is.
Oh, I love the castle. I drop by every once in a while just to see what's happening in the castle.
We all take our turns climbing in the castle, just kind of hiding out for a little bit sometimes too.
That castle was like around when I was a kid, so
yeah, it's
been here for a minute. It's a fixture.
It's a castle. It's built to stay there.
If the castle ever leaves, I think the kids will too.
How many workers do we have in our nursery now?
We have 6.
Okay, cool. And if a new mom, do we have a place where I know there's a cry room for like up above and the balcony sanctuary, but if you're nursing, things like that, do we have a place here for moms to be able to go and
yes
and do that? Where is that? Is that around in your area?
It is in our area. If you come to the nursery, we can take you there, but it's a private room that you can go into, nurse your child, and just have some peace and quiet while you do it.
Okay, cool. And y'all, they do a great job. Our kids went to that nursery, and everybody. The Northside Nursery is kind of a cool place anyways. You got
it is
a nice, safe place to be. And good staff, and
it makes you feel old, especially when kids that you had in the nursery are now driving, graduating from high school.
that is true. Yeah.
Yeah.
And when I say safe, I mean like it's a great room, but Miss Ann's a Taekwondo person.
Yeah, she'd keep him in line.
It's safe. Some I come try to steal a kid and get
a
a
roundhouse kick.
and get a foot upside the head.
My foot doesn't reach the head necessarily anymore. We'll let Sophia handle that part of
now
the anatomy.
she definitely could do that. I ain't no
just
telling
let
what she could do.
She's the muscle.
Yeah.
She is.
She keeps him in line.
I wonder how many people know that your child's being watched by a world champion.
Right. Yeah, this is our bouncer. For
Yeah.
the
Maybe I
nursery.
should add that to the brochure.
Yeah. World champion protector. Well, cool.
It's a selling point.
Now you do, yes, y'all do. Y'all have, y'all changed it. It used to be Sage's ATA.
Yes.
But is it the PAC or?
The Pack Martial Arts now, yes.
Yeah. And y'all had to move.
We did. Freddie's Frozen Custard wanted our location, so
And now
they won.
Chipotle wants the Steak and Shake place. And
Oh, I think they got it.
I think they did. They tore it down.
Steak and Shake doesn't have it anymore. That's for
They
sure.
sure don't.
It's amazing how quickly they can demolish a building, too. It's like we moved out one day and it was gone the next.
Yeah, it
Oh,
really
yeah.
is. Yeah.
It's like minutes.
There was this big monster Goodson house here on the property for years, and they chomped that thing up in no time at all.
Oh,
It was
yeah.
almost 3 stories, and they just ripped that thing to pieces and took it away. Well,
Yes.
well, so y'all are in a new location with the PAC, right?
Yes.
So where is it at?
We are on Carriage House Drive in Carriage House Plaza, the little shopping mall, shopping strip mall across from Logan's Roadhouse.
Cool.
Yes, in the old Profiles space.
Okay, yeah.
Well, that's always neat.
By the Pizza Hut?
By the Pizza Hut and Thai Cafe, so you can
Yes.
bring your child to Taekwondo and get dinner too.
And that Thai cafe is good.
It is.
It's really good.
It is.
So y'all have had that for a long time, but how long have you been here as our nursery director at Northside now?
You know, honestly, I don't know. Probably six years or so.
Oh gosh, yeah. I was thinking maybe a little bit longer.
I don't remember. It rolled from Parents' Day Out into when Miss Cece left.
Yeah.
I just kind of took over. We combined that whole area as nursery and Parents' Day Out. So I really don't remember. It just all became one big bundle.
Yeah, and you did have PDO for a long
Yes.
time,
Yes.
which I miss because that was like when my girls got older, I could still do trick or treating with the PDO
Exactly.
kids and egg hunts with the PDO kids, and you got to see the like the turkey and stuff gobble for the Thanksgiving presentations. It was
Our
just right
Christmas
here at the church.
program. I miss our Christmas
It
program.
was fun, yeah. It's like you could hang out with little kids still when your kids are old.
Yes.
Well, cool. Well, is there anything you would say to the parents or anybody out there as they're getting ready to come back from COVID and maybe they are coming back? Is there anything the nursery would like to share with them?
We do take infants. We start them at 8 weeks. So after they've hit that 8-week mark, we love babies. They get lots of good cuddle time when they're in the nursery with us, and all the way up to children 4 years old. They can leave and go to their Sunday school and come back if you're in Sunday school, and then going to the 11 o'clock service. So that's not a problem. And we just love to have them back in there. We're following safety measures. We're taking temperatures, disinfecting and wiping down. Everyone in the nursery has been vaccinated, so we're all safe on that end of it.
That's good.
And we take great care of your kids, and we just love to spend time with them and play with them. So
Well, great. So not only physically safe and all of that, but also taking care of all the important things that I'm sure y'all were doing a big chunk of that anyways, but now we're really hyperactive and hyper diligent on making sure we do those things.
in the fall, when everything starts back again, we really hope to start our Sunday school. We do a little Sunday school lesson with them. We have a little music time with them. So we want to get that back going again too. And hopefully we'll have some parents' night out going on a few times in the fall for our parents, so that they can go have a fun evening, and we'll take care of your kids. And we take care of kids all the way up through school age, so into about 5th grade. So we have a good time with the kids.
Yeah, I know they'll be looking forward to that as well. So,
Date night is on the
date night
horizon.
is back. Date night is back.
This is weirdly our most watched episode.
Well, good. Well, we do a thing with the staff, and you've been on staff for a good long while now, and so we kind of like to put them in a spot and see how quick they are on their feet. So,
Oh, no.
we have this thing called 3 for 30, or 3 and 30, or 3.
I think last time we called it 3 for 30, but
It's
it
3:30.
changes most from time to time. I don't think it's ever been the same.
Yeah. So we're going to ask you 3 questions. You just
Okay.
answer them. The first thing that pops in your head.
Okay.
All right. Well, who is your favorite character in the Bible?
David.
Oh, see, that's all good. That's a Mark David here is one of our most popular answers.
Is he one of the most popular?
But he's a good one,
I
especially
figure
people
if-
who work with kids.
If God loved him and all of his issues, he's going to love me too.
That's right. Favorite book? Book of the Bible?
Favorite book of the Bible?
Yeah, favorite book of the Bible.
Oh, wow. Psalms.
Psalms. And favorite verse in the scriptures all time?
Proverbs 16:3.
Oh, good.
Commit to the Lord whatever you do, and he will establish your plans.
Cool. Well, I do have to ask you one more question that we haven't asked any other staff, but it's just appropriate. So what's your favorite karate movie?
My favorite karate movie? That's easy. Best of the Best.
Ooh, that is such a good movie. I love that
That is
movie.
the truest, probably closest to real karate.
Yeah.
Real taekwondo. It's I think probably because it is a taekwondo movie, so
Yeah.
we can relate to it the most.
With Han Lee
Oh, yes.
and Eric Roberts.
Eric Roberts. Yes.
Yeah, that's good stuff right there.
That's the motivator you watch before you go to a competition.
Yeah. I mean, I do that before I go mow the yard. Watch some Best of the Best.
Oh, no,
yeah.
for me, it's like any Jean-Claude Van Damme movie. That's my speed.
Yeah. Yeah, that's good.
He's good. He's good. He's got the moves. I mean, he's got the flexibility, and his dance background helped him out a lot.
Well, he had them. I saw
Yeah.
him recently on some stuff. He did not age very well.
I mean, none of those guys really have.
Oh,
I mean,
Stallone.
have you seen Stallone lately?
Yeah, I follow him on Instagram.
Okay, Stallone is like in his 70s. He's pushing 80. Like,
Yeah, he is.
you know,
Honestly,
like,
I hope I look that good when I'm 80.
exactly. I hope I'm
I
still.
think Chuck
like,
Norris probably, and with all the jokes and everything,
Yeah.
he probably has aged the best and maintained the best true health and
Yeah.
shape and fit and shape.
Yeah.
Yeah, probably. I don't know. Schwarzenegger's still looking pretty
Schwarzenegger's
good.
looking
Yeah.
good. Yeah.
He didn't do martial arts though.
No.
Yeah, he was just.
He was
The
just
thing.
a muscle.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, Jackie Chan actually looks
Yeah, he
pretty
does
good
too, and
for-
Jackie
for a
Chan's
long
still doing
time.
really well. Yeah.
And Steven Seagal.
Oh,
Steven
man.
has not done
Learn
well.
from Steven
Steve
Seagal.
has not been doing well for a while now.
Okay, I have to tell you though, funny story or funny thing. When this is back in the early '90s, and my husband Mitch Sage had let his hair kind of grow some. It was a little longer and things like that. And if he slicked it back and things like that, he would get. Are you that karate guy? No,
Oh.
I am a karate guy. I am not that karate guy. But yeah,
Next time I see Mr. Sage,
yeah. People think he
I know
was
what I'm
Steven
gonna be doing.
Seagal.
Yeah.
I think Steven Seagal got down to New Orleans and started eating too many of the free police officer meals that they would get.
Oh,
down
yeah,
there.
because he did that show.
Yeah,
where
Yeah,
they
that
would-
sheriff's, he was on the
Beignets.
sheriff's department. Yeah. They had too many beignets.
Beignets.
Yeah.
Oh, they're good.
Well, yeah, they are good. They are. In fact, let's go to New Orleans. They're
Sounds
really-
All right, yep, that's the end of this episode. Thanks for joining us.
Next one will be shot on location in New Orleans.
And you won't be able to understand anything we're saying because our mouths will be full of beignets.
Exactly.
Well, Miss Ann, thanks for dropping by
Sure thing.
and spending some time with us. And thanks for all the work with our kids and the nursery and all the little ones.
It is definitely
it is
our
great
pleasure.
to know.
Yes, and stop by and visit the nursery. Even if you don't have kids, if you just want to see what's going on in there, we love to have you come in and visit with us and check us out.
All right. Well, we thank Miss Ann for coming by. And like she said,
Thank you for having me.
go out and check out the nursery there in the narthex so that you can see it's the big glass door has nursery written on the ceiling there above it, and drop your kids off there and go enjoy whatever's happening at the church.
Yes, sir.
Well, the cool thing is that we were talking not long ago about some Bitcoin stuff, and I was telling Patrick and Kevin that I thought I had a conversation with Cameron, and he was somewhat an expert on this.
But it could have just been a dream.
It could have been.
Yeah.
But then Kevin and Patrick bumped into Cameron, and I mentioned it, and Cameron proved me right, that I was right, that he's somewhat of an expert on this.
I don't know that I'm I'm not an expert in any of it, but
Yes, we need to put
I
a
am
very
a
strong disclaimer on
very
that.
strong disclaimer before.
Anything we're about to say
I'm sure that
might be dubious advice.
I'm sure that yes, you all will be very much informed of all the things that I say that are wrong in here. But
the only reason we bring this up is because our community is talking about moving to a place where businesses and taxes and governments and all kinds of things can work with that particular form of payment and stuff. And so we brought up the thing, will churches get to a point where you are donating Bitcoin? Because now, you can donate, people leave estates, they leave all kinds of stuff, it's stock and, trust funds, all kinds of things in their estate planning and stuff for the church or gifts that they give. And it's all tax deductible. There's all these different rules and things that it all goes with. You can't just necessarily drop a Bitcoin in the offering plate on Sunday morning, but you give an offering online. Again, it's one of those things of, in Scripture, what we have been given, we are responsible for managing and being a steward of that. And so this will be another potential thing to steward over. So that's the spiritual side of it that we come from. But really, it's kind of like what we were joking about is, we finally, we grew up when people asked us to help them with their VCRs. And so here we are asking other people to help us with our Bitcoin knowledge because it's something new and we all have to, or we don't have to, but we all will probably want to learn a little bit about it.
Yeah, it is really new, fairly new. It's been around for a little while, but it's exciting. It's definitely, it's not a perfect system, but in a lot of ways it does have some really good pros and handles some traditional problems of money and things much better than many of our current situations. They've been talking about e-currencies and digital currencies, which is basically
and altcoins, cryptocurrencies.
Well, even before that terminology, I'm talking back in 1999. Milton Friedman was an economist, and all this person won a Nobel Prize and stuff for it. He was talking about, he's like, the one thing that we're missing that will come soon is a reliable e-currency, is what he called it, which was before we had the term cryptocurrency or Bitcoin or whatever, which that's what these are. It's a digital internet money.
Yeah. In theory, it's not really that hard to understand, but you can kind of get the general idea fairly easily. Then as you dive down deeper and you see there's multiple different kinds and all the different algorithms and everything that go along with each one.
Yeah. But Bitcoin was sort of the first. And it arrived in the early 2000s. I want to say 2005 is when a person, we're not really sure whether it was an actual one person or it was a group of people, but they were working under the pseudonym of Satoshi something.
Like Nakamoto or
something like that. It was a Japanese last name. However, he's commonly referred to online by people that talk on these things as just Satoshi. Everyone knows Satoshi is the one that invented Bitcoin. And it wasn't so much that he invented Bitcoin, he invented what's called the Bitcoin protocol, like blockchain technology, which these are all different problems and methods that he saw in how to make a reliable e-currency. And then he was like, okay, how do I fix this problem? Or how do I get around this problem to make this currency work? But the idea on Bitcoin was just, again, going back to before we were at the current stage of fiat currencies where governments sort of control the money and they put their stamp on it and they tell you the value of it. And it's just, it's paper that is purely based on what the government tells you the money is. When we go back before that, money existed before, quote unquote, those currencies did. And so that was the idea with Bitcoin, is that as the internet has sort of connected the world globally in a way that transcends national borders and governments and things, that we should be able to have that capability of sharing money and spending money and sending money in the same way, and it not be held down by, a central banking system or any one power or government policies or whatever. And that was a big problem up to the point of Bitcoin, was that if you wanted to send something, you could send money over the internet remotely or whatever, but it had to go, you would contact your bank, and then they would contact and it would
wire it
and wire it through.
Can you wire me some money?
They'd be wiring money through Western Union and stuff. We've all heard it, but it introduced, there was this third party you had to go through. And that's one thing that Bitcoin tries to answer is truly peer-to-peer global interconnectivity.
Yeah.
So Satoshi introduced this program, right? He uploads it onto the internet. It's just software and it's for free. And anyone can download it onto their computer, and their computer becomes a node, which is basically a copy of the entire ledger of Bitcoin. So whereas in the past, I mean, that's really all a bank did, right?
Yeah.
It was a ledger where they kept track of all the funds, and then they kept track of the transactions.
And who had those funds and
it was
how
a ledger,
many. And,
exactly. But it wasn't just the ledger. It was also the bank was the people running it and making it all, keeping track of everything and moving those funds from one point in the ledger to the other point in the ledger as those things happened. Well, so Satoshi introduces the Bitcoin and Bitcoin protocol to automate that process. And he uses the openness of the internet to help secure it by basically, instead of having you privately say something to your bank, say, I want to move this money here or send this money to this person or whatever and write a check. Instead, when you make a transaction with Bitcoin, you basically are shouting to the internet,
this is where it's going.
$5 from A to B.
Yeah.
Right?
So everybody can see it.
But the thing that makes it reliable and secure is the wider the adoption of it, because every single person that downloads the software, then their computer keeps track of the ledgers. Everyone has a copy of all the ledgers.
Yeah.
And every time there's an update to the ledgers, it goes through a process of verification, which I believe is called work order. Proof of work. That's the term that they use. But proof of work is where blockchain technology basically comes into, because they don't just shout out the.
You've said blockchain a couple of times, and explain to people what blockchain is.
Okay, so blockchain,
just in layman's terms.
Right, blockchain. So they compile a few thousand transactions or whatever into what is known as a block, and the block then is scrambled in a really ingenious way of scrambling up the information. So it's not just easily readable, and it's sort of a one-way encryption, decryption, because basically they scramble it up in a way where it's practically impossible to unscramble it. However, there's an interesting thing called hashing, which is that your computer, your node, your copy of the ledgers or whatever, can sit there and hash this blockchain. And as it goes through, it finds the blockchain's hash, which is sort of an ID number. It's a short number that you can get from this block. And this group of transactions in this block will always come out to that same hash identification number, this short number that identifies that block as these transactions. And if one number, one little bit is changed in any of those transactions, the entire hash comes out different. And that's part of what allows the security, is that with everybody having a copy of it, everyone knows exactly where someone tried to cheat the system, where someone tried to be dishonest and fake some numbers or whatever, because it all ends up, that's where the hash comes out different. And the way it becomes a chain is that hash from this block, block A, is then put into block B with the next group of transactions and whatever. So it is chained and linked.
Each Bitcoin has its own serial number, basically, right? So
basically.
I'm boiling it down a little bit.
Yeah, because
basically each Bitcoin sort of has its own identification marker, so that as it gets used in a transaction, that number gets somehow put into the blockchain so that you can kind of trace back the different transactions, and each time you make a new transaction, it adds to that blockchain. Am I saying that correctly?
Sort of, basically. Yeah, the blockchain is part of the security because it literally tracks every single transaction that happens.
So it's just a code that's written that keeps following this particular identification number.
Sort of. But in the way that each block is its own thing and linked to the others, and the way that they're scrambled through and then hashed out, it lends itself security because basically with all the billions of people online, all running the same programs, all hashing the same blocks coming out, we can basically just look and find the longest chain and say that's the right chain, because it's the one that is the most honest, the one that everyone is agreeing, or the majority is agreeing is correct. And that's basically how we get it, because anytime we come up with a difference, as long as it's a minority who are all saying, oh no, it changed here or whatever, we can say, no, that's wrong, and just ignore it. And so we look to the longest chain, and it's this big chain of transactions and the history, which for some people is a bit of a problem, because basically it's like every time you spend $1, that dollar gets slightly heavier. And eventually, you're
passing around a brick and
exactly.
then you're passing around a car.
That's minuscule to the point where really that probably won't become a factor.
By the time it really becomes a problem, they'll probably find a workworkaround for it.
But it
or
is,
our processing speeds on our computers will be so much faster that it won't be an issue.
So it's really interesting because it's like if we were a giant beehive and every computer is a bee, and we're all going by the same rules and the same bee things. We're all gathering the pollen and we're bringing it back to the hive. And the hive is created by all of the individual bees following the rules and creating this thing. And so that's kind of what Bitcoin is attempting to do. And it's through the fact that it's all of these bees. To give you an idea, it can be home computers to other things, but the size of what you have really doesn't matter, because if Google devoted all of the computing power, all the machines at Google entirely to this, they would make up less than 1% of the Bitcoin nodes in the system. And so,
because one of the good things about Bitcoin, or I would say one of the pro category, is that because it's like a decentralized thing, it's not attached to any government. So where it doesn't have the government regulations and oversight, it does have sort of what you were talking about before we started recording. It's like you can trade anywhere in the world, and your Bitcoin is worth the same anywhere in the world, regardless of national currencies.
Yeah, and that's the idea, was to go back to money rather than currency, right? Because at the very beginning, there's always been money. The most basic form, money is an IOU.
Yeah.
And it's saying this person owes me this person owes me that, or whatever. And we began, trading rocks. And then there's the ugly rocks that are in every riverbed. Nobody wants those. We want the shiny rocks, the pretty rocks, and that's how we got exactly. We get to the precious, the metals that are shinier, and then we learn to extract those for their purest forms. We get precious metals, and then it's like, oh, iron. There's a ton of iron, and it's a metal, but we don't use it for money because it's not as rare. And so it's like by the scarcity of something and the rarity of something, it is given value, at least in the way we use it monetarily. And it wasn't until later that governments made fiat currencies where they, for lack of a better term, it's basically carnival tickets. They're stamping what the value of that ticket is and then handing it out to you and making you, or asking you to trade something of real value for carnival currencies. I don't want to make some government entity mad at
our FBI agents are getting real mad that we're saying this.
They're listening in on this one. But essentially that was the idea. And it was a way, at least initially, to consolidate power, right? To have all of the things of value, and you're the one that's able to hand out the valuable currencies and stuff to trade with. And so the openness of the internet gives us a chance to sort of go back to trading something of quote unquote real value. And that's the other thing, is that yes, it may be digital and it might be quote unquote just numbers, but through the blockchain and that added security, that long history that's being able to be proved and tested and whatever, and is resistant to manipulation, because they would have to basically fake over 51% of everyone in the world who's using it. Yeah. And it's just literally practically an impossibility because of just the sheer size of those numbers. Bitcoin is finite. Yeah. There are 21 million Bitcoins that will ever be found.
That's it. Yeah. And each one has its own serial number, and you can't duplicate it. And
And so just like gold, there's only a finite amount of gold in the world. And that's part of what gives it its value, is that it's rare, and that as we use it up, or we lose some, or we mine it out of the earth, there's less and less of it to find. And that's kind of where Bitcoin is. There was the gold rush where people are mining and they're finding gold and they're getting tons of it, and it's slowing down.
Yeah.
And that's sort of a concern for some people because it's like, well, there's only so much and I'm late to the races. You know, everyone else has already gotten their
and that's what
piece
happened.
Of the pie.
And that's what happened at the gold rush too, was that all of a sudden you're coming in and 2 or 3 guys, you know, like you and I'd get together and go, you know what, we're doing pretty good. So let's buy Patrick's part. And then we swindle him out of his money and his piece. And then we go get more of his. I think that's what's going to happen here. Is you're going to have some of that because, and you may have it with the governments because, you know, they deal with what's legal tender for them. And they, you know, so for a government, and a government's going to want to get involved.
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
There is no, in fact, they're already wanting to. And
yeah,
you know, so
even with like Scott Conger wanting to bring it in and, you know, put Jackson on the map by using Bitcoin, it's like, how much is the government going to try to get in? Because as soon as you start trying to regulate it, Bitcoin then ceases to be what it set out to be.
And he posted something the other day that, you know, there's already some Senate and rules, some congressional things that need to happen in order for some things to happen with it at the government level. And so it is something that is new. It is kind of in that gold rush kind of fever right now. It's not that. It's new to so many other people now. Some of you guys, like
it's been around for a while.
It's been around, and y'all are about it. But
I was gonna say it's
the normal person.
It's been around for about probably 15 years at least.
The normal person though is not.
But that's the problem is that in 2017, I believe it was 16.5 million of the 21 million Bitcoin that could ever be found had already been mined.
Yeah.
It's already been grabbed. And the problem is that, you know, there's less and less to find. And that's part of what's driving up the value of it is that
I think
as more important people get into
as of today, I looked it up and one Bitcoin is worth like the equivalent of 56,000 US dollars or something. Yeah.
And it's pretty crazy. Another sort of con for some people is that it's what's called a non-fungible token. It's an NFT. It's not fungible, meaning it can't be replaced.
Can't be broken.
It can't be replaced because of the way the blockchain works and adds security and this proof of history. There's no way to replace a Bitcoin, even if that Bitcoin is lost forever. And there are multiple instances where we know of where people had thousands of Bitcoins, which is millions of dollars in today's current market, but they had thousands of Bitcoins on a hard drive and then damaged the hard drive beyond repair, beyond whatever, or they lost the hard drive or whatever. And those are just gone. You can't replace them. You can't get identical ones and just stick them back into the market to keep them in circulation. And that's another con for some people. It's an issue for some people because it's like, you know, it's shrinking that pool of available Bitcoins even more. And then there's the problem, like you said, as governments try to get involved and people of power, just like in the original days when gold, you know, it was mostly through gold and precious stones and metals and things. As, you know, people of power try to consolidate some of that. I mean, they have more buying power and stuff. And it's not just governments. Governments are trying to get in on it and trying to figure out how can we rein this in or how can we, you know, regulate this. But that's the whole point is that Bitcoin isn't regulatable. And it's like essentially, and based upon the Bitcoin protocol, and people have been trying since it came out to crack it, to find some way to exploit it or manipulate it. And so far it has proven uncrackable, unmanipulatable. But I mean, we see people like, you know, Elon Musk and Tesla electric cars. They're like, oh, you can buy a Tesla with Bitcoin. Well, what they don't tell you though, is that you pay for your electric car or you put your deposit down for your electric car with Bitcoin. Well, they only like honor it based on what Bitcoin is like at the time of your purchase. And it's interesting because basically if you want to then sell your car or whatever, but Bitcoin has gone up in value, well, they're just going to give you the dollar amount and they're going to keep the profit.
Well, yeah, it's a business.
If you've given them Bitcoin and then the price of Bitcoin drops or whatever, well, then they'll give you the Bitcoin back. And it's an interesting, the way they've worded it. And again, I haven't really studied it. I just heard some people talking about it. And it's just really interesting because it was their way of consolidating more and more Bitcoin resources and trying to hoard that in a way, for lack of a better term. I know it seems really negative, but they hoard that in a way so that they always come out on top, always end up with a little more and a little more.
Yeah.
And again,
it's from a business standpoint.
I totally understand that. And, I'm like, that's their prerogative in a capitalist society to do that.
That's what the governments are trying to get in on. And
exactly.
Then you're just back to the same problem. But the whole, so the most widely used blockchain out there right now is actually called Ethereum. And one of the things that they're getting into, which is really cool, is they're doing smart contracts. And they're trying to build a financial suite for people in countries that don't have the state infrastructure that we do, that they can get access to bank accounts and car loans and insurance and, things like that. Excuse me, that their governments can't supply. But because this is a global and it's a decentralized system where it doesn't matter where you are or who you are, if you can get on here and do it.
Yeah, that's a big point that again, they've been talking about this for over a decade and stuff since Bitcoin and things, the whole blockchain technology originated. It was a really ingenious workaround, but they've been talking about this for a while now. And it was part of one of the big incentives for this whole thing to work was that, previous to now, when you wanted to wire money and you had to go through a bank and all of this, well, there are people without bank accounts. There are people that don't have access to those things, and you have no way of doing that, And so it basically cuts a significant portion. I think the quote, the number I saw somewhere online was 2 billion people that don't have access to bank accounts and these kind of things. And so they're basically cut out of the global economy.
Yeah.
And so by introducing something that in theory could reach beyond the limits of bank accounts and governments and things, it allows to bring more and more people into the world economy and to be a part of this.
And it would be things that in the United States, you may have a whole lot of money, but if you're trying to send money to somebody in a country that doesn't trade with America, you basically have nothing, and you can't send anybody money there. You can't trade with anybody there because whatever you have is worthless. And so this is another way to kind of transcend that, where you could trade something with people in that country that, had nothing to do with the government. So
who are some of those countries that would be?
The first one that comes to my mind is probably North Korea. So
yeah, I haven't entirely looked into it, but it's just simply on a broader, more conceptual scale is saying just that it's not tied to governmental diplomatic relations. And so if those diplomatic relations were to dissolve, the people within those countries could still maintain an active trade and an active communication via that way,
So if you ever ended up in a situation where you're in North, South Korea or East, West Germany.
Exactly.
Or, when the Soviet bloc disintegrated, you had these different trade countries then popping back up, and then they could have a decentralized way of doing that.
And so there are some definite pros to it. There are some cons. I mean, between just we talk about not being fungible, the fact that we're having to have this discussion, it's super easy to look at a green piece of paper that has a 1 printed on it and understanding this is worth 1.
Yeah.
It's a lot more complicated to try and explain Bitcoin and the technologies and why it's secure and why this and why that and how it works. And so,
and we're still pretty much at a thing where the things I have, the things I can lay my hands on, that I might have more than you or might have bigger numbers than yours have, that's still the overall arching way of trade in this country and stuff. And because even just in my grandmother's lifetime, she's 96, and, could you imagine that from the Depression to this age, and whereas we have gotten to the point where, yes, you can Venmo and PayPal, and you can do a million different kinds of transactions that still work out of a bank account or a credit account, but it's still, you're not touching stuff. It's still kind of, like my truck's a certain size. It's bigger, more powerful than your car.
Yeah.
And man, I make the payments out of something. I don't really go to the banker and hand him cash or goats or cows or chickens or anything.
A couple of years ago, they estimated that like 90% of the developed world's money and wealth and stuff doesn't exist. It's not
digital.
in a physical
It's
form.
perceived.
It is all
it's
it is all in those ledgers digitally on banks. It's just Bitcoin is saying, instead of having that ledger be in a bank where we go and we talk to the bank and ask them to make a change to the ledger is kept by every single person that has
that is part of the community.
Is part of the
It's a
community.
community. It's a cooperative.
And
community
there is
situation.
something to be said about physical as well, because at least for me, I'm very much I like the convenience of the technology, but when I'm buying stuff, like when I buy music, I like to buy a record, like a vinyl record with a download code. Yeah. When I buy a movie, it's like I like to buy the Blu-ray disc with the digital code so that I have that physical thing in my hand that I can touch and say, yes, I own this. But I still have the convenience of technology. It's like when I buy a book, I prefer reading a real book and holding it in my hands versus, a Kindle or something like that.
In COVID, when people started staying home, getting on the internet more, even people who weren't purchasing things, and like we had never ever done the click list thing at Kroger where you just, we'd never done that until COVID, and we did it once. And I'm not a big fan of it because, like you say, I like to go in and touch my groceries and make sure that's exactly what I want. But and now people, and that's the reason this has come back up into a mainstay thing of this. Everybody's interested in this now, and so it just made that resurgence this last year. And then the market started playing different stuff, and people were like, whoa, that's a lot of money. We start thinking about things like that. And
we're definitely still sort of on the forefront of all this. And it'll be interesting to see how it pans out in the future. No telling where it's going to go, but
the one thing we're guaranteed is change, right?
Always.
And
that's like the theme of this podcast.
And to remember, and that's the whole reason for this podcast is to go bring the church into new spaces and something new. Could you imagine a pastor sitting around that wasn't on a radio station that was paying the church or the church paying for them to be out and a word going out? I mean, this is another example. You're right. But, not only that, we still have to remember what Jesus said and give to Caesar what is Caesar's.
But what if Bitcoin doesn't belong to Caesar?
Yeah. But
who do we give it to then?
But does the value and your desire for more Bitcoin become your Caesar? And then you need to give to the Lord what is the Lord's. So it does become a division of our time and our obedience and those things. So it can become, the currency or, whatever it is still that thing that, can hold us there. So interesting discussion. Thanks for coming, Cameron, and being a part of that because, wow, I understood 78% of that.
Thanks for having me on.
That's probably about 75% more than I understood.
It's a difficult thing. It's a hard thing, and it's going to be one that's, it's definitely coming. But definitely,
I would recommend people just kind of get online, and there's tons of videos and articles and stuff.
There's a great video. Sorry to jump in, but there is a great video by the channel is called The Art of the Problem on YouTube, and the video itself is called The Trust Machine. And it's a really great video just explaining basically kind of what I've been going through or what I've talked about and just sort of a lot of the history of money and things in general, but then explaining how Bitcoin works and how it ties into all of that. And it's a really well put together thing.
I don't see Bitcoin going away anytime soon, so probably better to learn about it.
And we are saying Bitcoin just because it is probably one of the more well-known ones. It's almost like people say, I want a Coke, but yet they'll take whatever soda you have kind of thing.
Yeah,
so
it's kind of moved into that. It's the go-to.
Yeah, we're kind of talking
it's the name brand
cryptocurrencies is what they call them.
So. Yes.
Yeah.
Well, cool. I don't know. That's just all interesting. And you stop and we talk with Ann and talk about the nursery and what will those little ones be talking about and doing. It's just pretty amazing, really. Yeah. So pretty amazing. Well, good deal.
Well, guys, thanks for podcasting with me today.
Yeah.
It's been fun.
Yeah,
it's fun.
Good.
My brain hurts a little bit now.
That was a bit of an info dump. I apologize.
That's all right. Learning lots here at the old Northside Now.
See, we're educational and informative as well as entertaining. So,
So definitely get your kids out to the nursery and check them out, and if you as you get back and
get their college fund in Bitcoin.
Hey, I know some stories about some people who did have some of that early, then they were given gifts as it, and they're sitting pretty nice right now. So it's possible. Yep. It's possible. If it lasts that long. You never know.
Thanks to all of you for joining us this week on Northside Now. Make sure to visit our website, northsidejackson.com, and check us out on Instagram @NorthsideJackson, and shoot us an email to podcast@northsidejackson.com. We'd love to hear from you. Also, make sure you never miss a show by clicking the subscribe button. And while you're at it, if you find this show to be informative or entertaining, consider rating us on whatever platform you're listening to us on. Or if you'd simply tell a friend about the show, that would help us out greatly as well. So once again, this is Patrick.
And this is Glenn.
Cameron visiting.
And that's what's happening at Northside Now.